In an era when the world stood on edge, with tensions between superpowers so intense that it felt like a single misstep could ignite a global nuclear disaster, Sweden faced a clear challenge: how to defend its skies against the looming threat of Soviet bombers without relying on anyone else. The answer came in the form of an aircraft that set new standards in aviation: the Saab 35 Draken. Developed in the early 1950s with its unique double-delta wing design, the Draken was created to intercept and destroy Soviet bombers before they could reach Swedish soil. It was built to be fast, agile, and capable of operating under the harshest conditions. Today, we uncover how a small, neutral nation engineered one of the most advanced and formidable fighters of its time. In the tense aftermath of World War II, the world was split into two rival blocs, each striving for dominance on the global stage. On one side stood NATO, led by the United States, and on the other, the Soviet Union with its Eastern Bloc allies. This era, known as the Cold War, was defined by an intense arms race, with both sides amassing weapons and preparing for a conflict that, fortunately, never fully materialized. However, the looming threat of nuclear war cast a long, dark shadow over the world, forcing every nation, whether aligned with a superpower or not, to carefully consider its survival. Sweden, with its proud tradition of neutrality, found itself in a particularly precarious situation. Geographically, it was situated in a tense neighborhood, with the Soviet Union just across the Baltic Sea and NATO countries to the west and south. This unique position meant that if the Cold War ever escalated into open conflict, Sweden could easily become a battlefield, despite its efforts to remain unaligned. The government, fully aware of this harsh reality, recognized that it could not depend on outside help in the event of war. The country needed to be able to defend itself on its own terms, requiring a military strategy that was both innovative and self-reliant. When Sweden embarked on the development of its next-generation fighter jet in the early 1950s, the stakes couldn't have been higher. So, what do you do when the enemy could be just minutes away from your doorstep? When you're caught between global superpowers, your wish list for a fighter jet gets pretty intense. The Swedish Air Force faced challenges unlike those of any other nation. Sweden's vast landscape, dense forests, rugged coastlines, and harsh winters demanded a fighter jet that could handle more than just speed. To truly protect its airspace, this new aircraft had to meet some tough requirements. First and foremost, it had to be fast, blisteringly fast. The greatest threat at the time was Soviet bombers armed with nuclear weapons, capable of reaching Swedish cities in mere minutes. To counter this, the country needed an interceptor that could hit supersonic speeds and close in on enemy aircraft at high altitudes. But speed alone wasn't enough. The jet needed advanced targeting systems and powerful weapons to take down those heavily armed bombers before they could strike. Speed and firepower, however, were only part of the equation. Sweden's defense strategy relied on the ability to keep the fight going, even if air bases were attacked. This meant the new jet had to operate from dispersed locations like reinforced highways or rural roads, staying operational even if traditional airstrips were destroyed. The aircraft needed to be tough, able to take off and land on short, rough surfaces, a significant engineering challenge. Another key requirement was rapid turnaround. Sweden anticipated that jets would need to be scrambled multiple times a day, so the aircraft had to be easy to maintain and quick to refuel and rearm. It needed to be serviced by small mobile crews, often made up of conscripts with minimal training. The goal was simple: get the jet back in the air within minutes, ready to face the next threat. Finally, the jet had to perform in the harsh, unpredictable weather of Northern Europe. Sweden's long winters and frequent snowstorms meant the aircraft had to fly in all weather conditions, day or night, while maintaining stability and control during high-speed interceptions, even in turbulent air and low visibility. Meeting all these requirements was no small feat. Just a quick moment before we unveil the rest. If you're new here, consider subscribing to this channel. Stay up to date and never miss out on the latest insights. Now let's get into the nuts and bolts of how Sweden's engineers turned those sky-high demands into reality. This wasn't just about building a plane. It was about rewriting the rules of aviation. The task was handed over to Saab Corporation, with the plan that their creation would step in once the aging 29 Tunnan and 32 Lansen had done their part and were ready to be retired. This was no small job, and it eventually involved more than 500 technicians and engineers. all contributing to a project led by Eric Bratt. Bratt's approach was nothing short of groundbreaking. He and the Swedish government were willing to take some serious risks, leading to a series of design choices that would not only define the Draken, but also leave a lasting mark on aviation history. One of the standout features of the Saab 35 Draken was its innovative double delta wing design. Unlike traditional wings, its wings were shaped like two overlapping triangles, or deltas, each swept at different angles. The front section of the wing was angled sharply at 80 degrees, reducing drag and allowing the jet to slice through the air at supersonic speeds, essential for its role as an interceptor where every second counted. The rear section, with a more moderate 60-degree sweep, provided the lift and stability needed at lower speeds. This smart combination gave the aircraft exceptional performance across a wide range of speeds and altitudes. But the double delta wing wasn't just about sleek aerodynamics, it also brought practical benefits. The unique shape allowed for more internal space, meaning the Draken could carry additional fuel without relying on external tanks that would otherwise slow it down. This extended range was crucial for patrolling vast stretches of Swedish airspace and staying airborne longer during missions. Additionally, the wing design offered superior structural strength, making it more resilient to the stresses of high-speed maneuvers and a reliable asset in combat situations. Before the full-scale Draken took flight, the engineers needed proof that their daring design would work. So they created the Lil Draken, a scaled-down prototype at about 70% the size of the final aircraft. Its purpose was to test the aerodynamics of the double delta wing, particularly at different speeds and angles of attack. In January 1952, the Lil Draken made its first flight, and what happened next was a game-changer. During an early test, the prototype unexpectedly broke the sound barrier while climbing, a remarkable achievement, especially since it wasn't even at full power. This surprise success confirmed that the double delta wing design wasn't just viable, it was groundbreaking. Buoyed by the Lil Draken's success, Saab's engineers moved forward with the full-scale development of the Draken, confident they were on the brink of something extraordinary. Testing pushed the aircraft to its limits, and by January 1960, the fighter had begun entering service with the Swedish Air Force. The aircraft proved its mettle in a series of rigorous exercises, where pilots flew almost non-stop over 3 days and nights. These drills showed that the Draken could rapidly scramble to intercept threats, quickly return to the air, and maintain a high level of readiness. By the end of the year, the aircraft had been deployed to several fighter wings, fully integrating into Sweden's air defense strategy. So, how did the Draken stack up when it finally hit the skies? Well, the J-35A, the first version built, was just the beginning of a whole family of jets that set the standard for performance. It was a single-seat aircraft with a sleek and efficient design, measuring 15.3 meters in length with a wingspan of 9.42 meters. Its empty weight was approximately 6,500 kilograms. Central to its performance was its engine, the Rolls-Royce Avon. Saab opted to license build this turbojet engine, which was renowned for its excellent thrust-to-weight ratio. Thanks to this powerful engine, the aircraft could achieve speeds of up to Mach 2, approximately 2,100 to 2,450 kilometers per hour, depending on altitude, making it one of the fastest aircraft of its time. This engine not only provided the Draken with the power necessary for rapid climbs and high-speed interceptions, but also ensured the reliability needed for Sweden's strategy of dispersing its air force across multiple improvised airstrips. The Avon's design allowed ground crews to service the engine quickly, enabling the fighter to be turned around and back in the air in record time. While the Draken wasn't intended to carry heavy bomb loads, it was designed with a substantial internal fuel capacity of around 2,200 liters. This allowed the aircraft to maintain an impressive range, even without the use of external drop tanks. It could operate at altitudes as high as 20 kilometers, and its climb rate was exceptional, enabling it to intercept targets with speed and efficiency. In terms of armament, the J-35A was equipped with two fixed 30mm Aden cannons mounted in the wings, each capable of firing 90 rounds. The aircraft also featured 9 hardpoints, 8 under the wings and 1 under the fuselage. These hardpoints could be configured for various missions, with 6 of the wing hardpoints typically reserved for high-explosive air-to-ground rockets. The remaining 2 wing hardpoints were often fitted with Sidewinder air-to-air missiles, while the underbelly hardpoint could carry either additional Sidewinders or an external fuel tank. Due to space constraints under the wings, the Draken could be configured with either missiles or rockets, but not both simultaneously, allowing it to be tailored to specific roles. The J-35A marked just the beginning of the Draken's evolution. A total of 90 J-35A units were produced, with the final one delivered to the Swedish Air Force in December 1961. The subsequent B version introduced significant upgrades, including a Swedish-made radar, improved avionics, and a version modified as a day fighter with its radar removed. The C variant added a second seat, transforming the aircraft into a trainer, while the D featured further improvements in engine performance, pushing the top speed from 1,900 to 2,150 kilometers per hour. The J-35E was developed as a dedicated reconnaissance version, equipped with up to 9 cameras and the capability to mount additional fuel tanks or an infrared reconnaissance pod. The final and most advanced model, the 35F, enhanced the Draken's speed even further and incorporated the latest missile technology, avionics, and a streamlined armament configuration, typically featuring just one internal cannon. Regardless of which variant was soaring through the skies, the entire series consistently delivered outstanding performance. The aircraft could cut through the air with remarkable power, achieving impressive speeds even at lower altitudes. Although initially designed primarily as an interceptor, it proved in numerous tests and training exercises that it was more than capable of excelling in dogfights. However, it was not only designed for combat excellence but also for operational versatility, reflecting Sweden's unique defense needs. Given the likelihood that traditional air bases might be targeted early in any conflict, the Draken was specifically designed to operate from a wide range of non-traditional runways, including public highways and rural roads. It could be quickly refueled and rearmed by small mobile ground crews, often working in the field under challenging conditions. The ease of maintenance was another critical aspect. The aircraft was built to be straightforward to service, with modular components that could be easily accessed and replaced. This was particularly important in Sweden's decentralized defense strategy, where rapid turnaround times were essential to keeping the Air Force ready at all times. Even in the harsh winters and remote locations of northern Sweden, the Draken could be maintained with minimal resources, ensuring that it remained a reliable and effective tool for national defense. While the fighter's blistering speed made it a formidable adversary at high altitudes, it was its maneuverability that truly set it apart in aerial combat. The innovative double-delta wings, designed for both structural strength and aerodynamic efficiency, allowed the aircraft to execute sharp turns and rapid climbs with remarkable ease. This agility wasn't just crucial for high-speed interceptions, it also made it a force to be reckoned with in dogfights. Unlike many supersonic jets, which could be cumbersome and difficult to control at lower speeds, this aircraft maintained its responsiveness, giving pilots the confidence to engage in close-quarters combat when needed. One of the most iconic displays of the Draken's maneuverability was its ability to perform the Cobra maneuver, known in Sweden as the Kort Pereire. This maneuver was discovered somewhat serendipitously by Swedish pilots during the early days of the aircraft's service. The platform's unique design made it prone to a phenomenon known as a superstall, where the aircraft would suddenly pitch up and lose a significant amount of speed, risking a stall. Rather than viewing this as a liability, the pilots realized they could turn this characteristic to their advantage. By intentionally pitching the nose sharply upward to a near-vertical position, it would momentarily stall and decelerate rapidly. If executed perfectly, the pilot could then regain control by leveling the aircraft and re-engaging the engines, bringing the plane back into normal flight. The maneuver, named after a fencing move, was as sharp and decisive as its name suggests. In combat, the Cobra maneuver was a game-changer. By suddenly decelerating, the aircraft could cause an enemy to overshoot, putting the Swedish pilot in the ideal position to strike from behind. Though it required precision and carried risks, the maneuver showcased the aircraft's exceptional control and highlighted the skill of its pilots. It quickly became a signature move, cementing the Draken's fearsome reputation in the skies. As we've discussed, the Draken was built with one primary goal in mind: to safeguard Sweden's airspace during the most dangerous moments of the Cold War. In the best-case scenario, the aircraft would patrol the skies, deterring any potential threats while peace prevailed, and World War III remained a terrifying what-if. But in the worst-case scenario, a nuclear confrontation between the superpowers, the aircraft was designed to be Sweden's first and most crucial line of defense, fending off Soviet bombers long enough to protect the nation from immediate annihilation. But the nightmare of a nuclear war was avoided. and the Draken never had to engage in the brutal realities of combat. What it did was maintain the integrity of Sweden's airspace, and this was not a theoretical exercise. The threat of Soviet aircraft straying into Swedish skies was very real, and the fighter was frequently scrambled to intercept unidentified aircraft approaching Swedish borders. Soviet bombers and reconnaissance planes regularly tested the limits of Sweden's air defenses, and the Draken was often the first to meet them. These encounters, while usually resolved without conflict, demonstrated the aircraft's effectiveness as a deterrent. The Draken's influence wasn't confined to Sweden alone. Recognizing the aircraft's advanced capabilities, several other nations decided to integrate the Draken into their own air forces, each making modifications to suit their specific needs. Denmark, Finland, and Austria all saw the value in the Draken and incorporated it into their defense strategies. In Denmark, the fighter was adapted to meet the country's dual requirements for air defense and ground attack. The Danish version featured upgraded avionics and additional hardpoints, enabling it to carry bombs and rockets, which made it a versatile asset in the Danish military. Finland, with its extensive border shared with the Soviet Union, particularly appreciated the Draken's speed and maneuverability. Finnish pilots quickly became proficient with the aircraft, turning it into a key defender of their airspace. In an interview, former Finnish Air Force pilot Ari Saarinen recounted a time when he executed the Cobra maneuver in a Draken during an interception of a Royal Air Force Hawker Siddeley Nimrod over the Baltic Sea. The Nimrod's crew, attempting to evade the Draken, slowed down, expecting the Swedish jet to struggle at such low speeds. However, the Finnish pilot skillfully executed the Cobra maneuver, keeping the Draken behind the Nimrod at near stall speed, an impressive feat that earned them praise over the radio from the surprised British crew. Austria, too, recognized the Draken's value, operating the aircraft for several decades. In Austrian service, the fighter was primarily tasked with air defense, especially during the years of the Yugoslav wars in the 1990s. During this time, Austrian Drakens were frequently scrambled to patrol the skies, ensuring that the conflict didn't spill over into their territory. On several occasions, Yugoslav aircraft accidentally entered Austrian airspace, prompting swift interception by the aircraft. Although these incidents never escalated into full-blown combat, they underscored the critical role of the Draken as a reliable and capable interceptor. As the Cold War marched on and technological advancements accelerated, it became apparent that even the mighty Saab 35 needed a successor. By the late 1960s, the Swedish Air Force began casting its gaze forward, seeking an aircraft that could not only meet, but exceed the capabilities of its predecessor. This quest culminated in the creation of the Saab 37 Viggen, a new aircraft that would carry the mantle of Swedish air defense into the next era. The Viggen, aptly named Thunderbolt in English, was designed with versatility and cutting-edge technology at its core. Unlike its predecessor, which was primarily an interceptor, the Viggen was envisioned as a multi-role aircraft, capable of executing a wide array of missions, from air-to-air combat and ground attack to reconnaissance. This new design philosophy demanded a more complex and powerful machine, and the Viggen delivered with advanced avionics, a greater payload capacity, and a more potent engine. Transitioning from one aircraft to another is never without its hurdles, particularly for pilots accustomed to the quirks and handling of their trusted jets. The new aircraft, with its sophisticated systems and increased speed, required a different skill set. During mock dogfights, pilots quickly learned that the Viggen's superior speed and power made it a challenging adversary. Yet the Draken still had a few tricks up its sleeve. Pilots often employed the Cobra maneuver, a move the Viggen couldn't replicate, to outmaneuver their faster counterparts in simulated battles. These mock engagements showcased the strengths and weaknesses of both planes, as well as the adaptability and ingenuity of the Swedish pilots. As the Viggen began to take its place in the Swedish Air Force, the Draken's role gradually diminished. By the 1970s, the process of phasing out the older aircraft had begun, with the Viggen gradually taking over critical defense duties. However, retirement didn't come overnight. The veteran aircraft continued to serve in various roles, particularly as a training platform for new pilots who would eventually transition to the newer jet. Its straightforward design and sturdy construction made it an ideal aircraft for honing the skills of young pilots, proving its worth time and again. By the late 1990s, the last of the Drakens were officially retired from active service in Sweden, marking the end of an era. The final flight of a Swedish Draken took place in December 1999, just as the world was preparing to enter a new millennium. But the story didn't end with its retirement. Many of these jets were preserved for posterity, becoming stars at air shows and mainstays in aviation museums, where they continue to inspire awe and admiration. Pilots who flew these aircraft during its prime often reminisce fondly, sharing tales of daring maneuvers and close encounters with Soviet aircraft during the height of the Cold War. The enduring legacy of this fighter also led to its continued use in training and test pilot programs in other countries, including the United States, where a few of these aircraft continued to fly well into the 21st century. The transition from the Draken to the Viggen was a necessary step in the evolution of Sweden's Air Force, but it was also a bittersweet moment for those who had come to know the Draken as more than just a machine. While the Viggen and later aircraft, like the Gripen, would go on to write their own chapters in the history of Swedish aviation, the Draken's legacy remains a foundational part of that story. A reminder of a time when the world teetered on the brink, and a small, neutral country built one of the most capable fighters the world had ever seen.